Hi. Hello, everyone. And it looks like we have a couple of people already here. Dr. Marshall, always first to the
Please.
party. I love it, love it, love it. So glad to be here with my friend Tiff again on Fired Up Friday and TGIF. Thank God. I mean, whew, I feel like we've lived another, like century.
That every 2 weeks we will come back and see how we are doing. And the last 2 weeks have been insane. So we're surviving, we're making it, but I don't know for how long because it's crazy. And we're already, can you believe that it's already July 11th? Like I looked at the calendar and I was like, where did time go? Already almost the middle of the month.
It, exactly. It's like we're only a half a year in, and I feel like this should be over already. Like we should be having an election for another president because like this is too much.
Six
Um,
months feels like 6 years. It's madness.
it really is, and so many things have happened since we were here 2 weeks ago. Of course, one of the most tragic things was the flood in Texas. One of the most horrific things is Alligator Alcatraz. Like, you want to dig in on that? Because that shit has me really, really, I can't even really kind of think about it too much because it stirs so much anger. Ugh.
Yeah, well, I think when we think about like what we thought pre-election, like
Hmm.
pre-election, what we thought post-election, and then now where we are, with 6 months into this, like we kind of figured we all kind of said, oh, there might be concentration camps. We don't know what this is gonna look like. Where are they gonna put all these people? And then we find out that they are just so cruel, so callous that they would think of the worst thing possible and the worst thing possible that they could possibly think of, not sending people it was bad enough that they are sending people away. You know what I mean? Like they're sending them to different countries, El Salvador. I've heard Sudan. I've heard Mexico. Like they have all these different places that they're sending people. But to have a place in the United States called Alligator Alcatraz is despicable in every way. And these people claim to be Christian, and then you have Jigsaw, aka Laura Loomer, saying that she's hoping 65 million people get eaten by alligators. Like, I mean, how does that work? Like, these things are not jiving to me, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating to hear it. And it's like you almost become immune to it because it's happening so often. There's all these raids. I mean, we're still having raids. There was a thing that happened at the park in Los Angeles. Like all of these things keep coming at us like super fast, and we don't even have a moment to breathe to even digest what is really happening because something else is going on 2 minutes later, right? So I think those were two things, and then we had the floods that kind of was the story of the weekend. And somehow the weekend is just always horrible, right? Is it me or is the weekend
Yes.
so
No,
horrible?
no, no, no. It really is. It's like some catastrophic, awful thing always happens over the weekend. It really is.
Okay, so it's not just me because I'm like
Mm.
every Saturday I feel like something really bad happens, and the more we're learning about the Mystic Camp and the Wake County, was that the name of it? The county that this occurred in Texas, something with a W.
Kerr County or something
Hardy,
like.
yes, her county maybe. The more that we're learning about what happened there, the more tragic it gets, and the fact that they were allotted money to be able to update their systems, and people were hesitant and didn't want to accept and turned away the money, which would have helped their own people it and avoided. Listen, the tragedy could have happened anyway. No, weather is unpredictable, right? But if you don't give people the opportunity to be able to plan ahead, give them fair warning of what's going to happen, these are the kind of breakdowns that should not be happening in government. And we saw that happen in other places like Hawaii. Remember with the fires, they didn't alert people quick enough, and they
Hmm.
couldn't and they couldn't get out. And so a lot of people ended up, dying. The same thing that happened in North Carolina with the hurricane. People didn't expect that it was going to come up into the mountains, and a lot of people's homes were destroyed. This happened in the middle of the night. I was when we did our live on Wednesday, I think you were on. Zach played the video of that family, and they had to go on their roof. They had to hide in the trees. I mean, this is the middle of the night event where the water is just rising. And what do you do in that situation? You are now struggling to figure out where do you go to save your own life. And the people
Mhm.
said they didn't get the warnings. They didn't know what was happening.
Right, and there's no like, we can't control Mother Nature, but as with a society as advanced as ours, people should be able to be warned about things, to prepare for things, and like you said, the like what happened was an atrocity, but more of an atrocity is the fact that people live in this area is known for flooding. Like 10 years ago, there was a tragedy, not with the high death toll that it has now, but still a pretty high death toll. I think it was like 10 people maybe that died in this same area. So it is an area that is known for this. Like I live in what is part of Tornado Alley. So I look and we have our weather radios. We look at the weather forecast to know when to get into our places of safety because, things like that, they move fast and you have to be prepared. And I know that our weather people here are already saying, and I can just see living here, that a lot of the tornadoes that we're getting now because of the climate change are happening at night. And those events that happen at night are much more dangerous than when they occur in the day. So that is a failure. And this is where people don't understand. And it's like, it seems like maybe you can start to connect the dots where government comes in. This is why we need, the government. This is why organizations like FEMA exist. And the fact that Nome had to take a break from her deportation cosplaying, to actually do her job, as under, like emergency management, and that she's still talking about not needing it. Like, what is wrong with these people? Like, as someone said, I can't even remember the congressman, but you're talking about, giving it to the states or whatever. Like, okay, so states can kind of prepare somewhat, but you're talking like some states may have a disaster every other year or so, but there is one every year somewhere in this country, in cities, big and small, cities that have a lot of, support and infrastructure for it, and not. But I just find that Republicans seem to be opposed to any type of improvements in our infrastructure, and to me that's great. It's like you talk about growth and innovation but they don't want to fund the infrastructure that underpins all of that. Like, what is wrong with y'all? You can't keep doing all this stuff on, like faulty.
Got the money. It wasn't like they didn't get money, right? I mean, it's one thing to say, well, we didn't get the money to be able to do this, right? And so we did. There was money allocated to the state, to the county, to be able to improve upon this, and they chose not to do this. And I read in a New York Times article where it was the county judge, and he's saying, listen, these people don't want to pay for this. And I'm just like, well, and he's like, even with this, I don't know that people will still want to pay for it. And I'm like, just the idea of small government doesn't really work when you have tragedies because you have to be able to, like I said, connect the dots. And there's a connection between the federal government who has decided to cut NOAA. They've decided to cut, and which impacts the weather service. There's not as many balloons being managed in the sky to be able to predict some of this stuff. Then you have like the conspiracy theory people who are saying who are trying to make this seem like it was a weather event that was kind of like produced. Who wants
Yeah,
people to
seat
die?
cloud seating.
Stop feeding and all this stuff. It's like, where do y'all come up with this stuff? And even to the point where, as they were giving like the press conferences, I honestly couldn't stomach to watch any of it because I cannot stand Greg Abbott and these people who are very callous about what is happening. And yeah, they're gonna do what they need to do. FEMA will come in and will help because it's a story. It's in the news, right? But what about the little town that has the flooding like this? What about there were people need this assistance? I mean, we've seen this happen multiple times. In how many floods has Kentucky had for this year so far? I feel like every week there's like a flood in Kentucky. The weather is getting worse, and we keep denying what we are seeing with our own eyes, which is climate change. How can we continue to deny it? And we haven't even had a hurricane yet. There's been a tropical storm so far, but we haven't had a true hurricane. And I pray that we do not have one because the folks in the South are going to be worried what will happen to me. Like what if my house is impacted? What if I need to go some is the government prepared to be able to help these people, or are they too busy chasing after against trying to find migrants to arrest that aren't even illegal at this point according to the reporting, right? These people, most of these people are most of these people are criminals. Some of them are even US citizens. They're just picking up people to pick up people to meet a quota that is unrealistic. And the focus of the DHS has been on on the immigration issue. And it's detrimental because you're not preparing for others. And then back to the alligator Alcatraz, the things that they're saying that were happening in there was horrific. I mean,
And
the
and they're
stories.
not letting yes, and they're not letting representatives whose job it is to oversee the quality of these facilities, they're not letting them in there. And you talk about the like how these things are happening, and some of them are like self-induced kind of things that are happening, or the things that they're doing are making these natural events that occur that we don't control are making them worse because of the things that they're doing. And because of their cult following, like I was listening to some of the people in Texas, it's like some of their own followers don't even get how the people that they're supporting are putting their lives in more danger. And then they're just saying, well, it was God's will. This is God's will. So that it's like a
Right. It's not God's
conditioning.
will for these children to be at a camp and enjoying their summer and then die while in the middle of the night because there's a storm and no one warned them. That's not God's will. And it's very cultish behavior. And they'll never
Mhm.
blame. Listen. You can't blame a singular person on a storm because yes, that is a natural thing that happens. But you can blame men and people and governments for not preparing. And I think that, and then did you see that they were trying to blame like the county sheriff? Apparently he must be like Hispanic or black. I don't know I'm assuming he's Hispanic because it's a really Hispanic area. They were calling him a DEI hire.
Are you serious?
I
Are
swear.
they? That's crazy. I'm sorry. Are you serious?
Which that is to feedback the
Yes, sorry. I was trying to check something, and yes, but they absolutely are, and it's like again they're leaning into these and they're keeping people so busy with that that they can't see like really who's actually causing them the real harm, and that to me is really I don't know another level of sickness in within the country. And the thing of it is, it's like we are so far along in this fascist journey, and people don't realize it. Like I'm really concerned. I'm trying to just, kind of like keep plowing ahead, staying hopeful, doing what I can. But you talked about how like how often these things are happening, how fast things are happening. It's as Madam VP said, a high velocity event that's coming at us, and it's being stoked on purpose. So hey Carrie, we see you. Thank you guys for joining us. Throw us up some hearts and help the algorithm. Appreciate you guys hanging in with Tiff and I.
Yeah, I can't see anyone who's joined. I don't know what's going on with this today, so I can't. It just shows. It only shows two people, and I see Dr. Marshall join, and that's it. That's the only thing I see. So if I can't see your
That's
comments.
why I was trying to get on the computer. I'm going to try to see because it's hard for me sometimes because of the setup of my phone. I can only do it like from my phone, so I can't see. But I do see we've got some folks in here, so thanks for joining. Invite other folks, send us some hearts, help the algorithm. But yeah, it's just like I said, they are doing a lot of things to us very, very fast. And people need to kind of see and connect the dots like the big ugly bill that passed and how it is funding. Like they are putting more money into policing than they are into structures and programs that will protect and help Americans. Like where's your priority? You are cheerleading people being put in a camp in a very unsafe place, people who probably shouldn't even be there to begin with.
Yeah, no, it's the money that they've invested with this bill into like the immigration process and trying to deport people and all of this. And I think it was what was the guy's name who created the bill last year that didn't pass. I forget, he's a senator. um Gosh, with Langford, Senator Langford, when he made, remember he was working with with Biden and their team to create that bill, and he's like, this this is worse than what we would have gotten passed before, and we're spending more money to do it, which is ridiculous. I mean, it just the whole thing, and my thing with the bill, with that bill in particular, is that people won't really understand the effects of that bill until maybe the end of next year because of the way, I mean, we could start feeling it sooner, but the fact that a lot of people won't get kicked off of Medicaid, and I think this is a really good point that people have been made, right? And they keep saying that that people, it's like this, like phantom person, the 35-year-old lazy man who sits, or guy who sits on his couch and watches TV. This is their trope. Who's basically gaming the system and has Medicare and then needs to go get a job, right? This is the example that they give every single time. If you're so concerned about this, then why didn't you make that effective this December? Because if you need to get them off their asses, then why are you waiting a whole entire year to do it? And after the midterms to make it go into effect. Like, these are the things that they manipulate people with so they can win back the election, win back the House and win back the Senate. And then they'll cause strife, and then people will think that it is Democrats' fault. And then this is what we'll be talking about all through 2020, the 2028 election.
Well,
And
let's
it's
yeah,
stupid.
exactly. And let's go back to that because I heard you talking about that, and you did a great job of distilling that in your live with Kenny and Zach. Um, but it's very intentional. And you know, when they passed that bill the first time, they did the same thing, like the sneakiness of what they're doing, of like making stuff temporary for the working poor, and you know, as permanent as they can for others, but timing it in such a way that it goes past an election. So hopefully, when you know if the power structure changes, they can blame Dems for the bad things, and then position themselves to be put back in power. And unfortunately, a lot of their base buys in to this. And the other thing that they're doing is they're starting early, as you said. It's like a conditioning, a programming, like these lazy people. It really is an old trope. It's just a revised kind of trope of the welfare queens.
Of course, but
This
it's
is
now a man. But it's now a man, and he's 35 years old.
and he's sitting on his mama's couch or in the
Yeah,
basement
in the
playing
basement.
games or
Exactly. Watching TV.
yeah.
And so ridiculous.
And
But
these
most of
people,
yeah, I
they
think
don't
that
exist.
yeah, and not to mention it's not the whole welfare queen thing. That was such an old school kind of thing where people were taking advantage of the system. Most of the people that are on Medicaid, they work, they have part-time jobs, they take care of their family, they need coverage just to maintain. Some people don't even utilize the services. They have it just in case of an emergency. If they want to go to the doctor, they're not, some of them are not paying for it, so there's not like it's anything out of pocket. But now you're going to force these people to get jobs. And as we see, the economy is not doing as good as it was 2 years ago in terms of the job market, right? I was reading an article this week about young people who are, finishing college and they're looking for jobs. These people would be impacted by this because luckily many of them will be able to stay on their parents' plan until they're 26 years old, thanks to the ACA, right? But then what about the people who are like my daughter's age, who's 25, and she's about to get kicked off our plan. Thankfully, she has a job. But what if she was to lose her job? Then what? I mean, she's not going to be eligible for coverage because she can't find a job. Like, what is the timing? None of this stuff is fleshed out to the point where you're like, okay, well, what's the time frame? So if I apply and I don't get a job within 3 months, or do I have to have a job in order to apply? You're going to recheck. There's all these rechecks every 6 months. That was part of the bill. Every 6 months, they have to recertify their Medicaid. Who is going to be, you're laying people off at CMS, who is going to be the ones who are going to certify this, right? Is it online? Do you have to go in person?
Right.
Do you have to
Like
present
these
your
are not the
credentials?
most efficient workers in the world, and they're getting rid of them. So, like, who's going to be taking care of these recertifications, so to speak? And the other thing is that they are doing another mass layoff with another agency and these things, and they're also pushing AI, which is an automating a lot of things, which will also have a lot of people unemployed. What kind of plans are you making for those people? Again, it goes back to they have all these great ideas. They want to do all these things, but they don't want to underpin the infrastructure that allows those things to happen or to happen um, well, to be carried out, and function well because they want people to think government is a bad thing. And I think that we need to do a better job. I don't know how we do break through some of the propaganda and helping people understand the purpose of government because they have demonized it. Yet it's funny because they're the ones who are profiting off of it. Like they only want to use it as a profit mechanism for themselves and their cronies. And it's really so authoritarian like. And people don't get that because that's the kind of stuff that Putin and Orban and those folks do in their countries. Like,
Well,
people,
I just don't think that Americans are. They're just there's like different sects of people, right? There's the people that are tuned out totally. They don't know anything. They don't know anything that's happening in government. They don't care. They only care about government when they need something, right? So they're not politically astute. They're not even political, period, right? So there's those people. Then there's the people that just, they show up to vote. They may see a story, they may watch TV, and that's like your normal amount of people. Then there's people like us who are very much into politics, right? And super engaged in everything that's going on. Most people fall into that second bucket where the day to day, they're just trying to make it and just, they'll show up to vote every 4 years, every 2 years, whenever they need to, and they're not enthusiastic about politics, but they know that they have to fulfill their civic duty and they want government to function and basically leave them alone, right? Just give me what I need and leave me alone. And when I think about those people, I feel like we there we are overly engaged, right? We are overly engaged because we're hearing everything. Like I think of my husband, he falls into that second bucket, right? He's like sometimes almost into the third, right? My
yeah.
daughter's where she hears stuff. She'll come to me and she'll say, Tiff, or not Tiff, but Mom, I saw this story. This is happening. I know what's going on here. My husband, he'll randomly come up to me and tell me something that he hears like on sports radio or something. Like it's kind of like I feel like I'm living in multiple worlds, right? So the whole thing just drives me crazy because again, I think the people who are overly engaged, to my point, is that they see the day to day and it's impacting them within the stress, like you and I and the people that are on this live probably, right? We are stressed
Yeah.
because we see the authoritarian, the fascism that is heading our way. And the people that are, like I said, in that first bucket who aren't engaged, it hits them, it will hit them the hardest when the reality sets in. And we keep saying that, but I don't know what event it will be that will strike them because I watched this video on it was somebody had it on TikTok. I saw it on Twitter, but it was from TikTok where this woman she was excited about alligator Alcatraz. She's like we got to get rid of all these illegals, and she's like talking. Comes to find out, a week later, she was part of this storm, and she's like, the government is not here, and she's crying. You were okay with what was happening before with these people, but now you now have this impact you personally, and now you're asking the government to come help you. You cannot have it both ways. You can't say screw those people, and now people are going to say screw you because you're cold and callous and lack empathy. I don't feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for everyone else around you. But you decided that you decided that what was your priority was more important than humanity. And I can't accept that. I can't accept people who think like that. And it's really sad that we are in a society where people have just stopped caring about other people because in the name of madness.
And you're right, but part of that too is also them being conditioned in that way because they, again, like I said, they are teaching them not to have empathy, like they are conditioning them. And why would you do that except for that you want to be able to do some awful things and you don't want people to feel um bad or to feel like they're horrific. Like you can put someone in alligator Alcatraz and have awful things happen to them, or not feed them, or feed them food with maggots in it, or let them get sick and die in these concentration camps, and people's hearts not be moved by that because you've been conditioning them. And this is that Christian cult kind of ethos that they are working to build in their constituents, and that's something that just happened too. Since we taught, now churches don't have to worry about being too political in the pulpit, like they were already doing it. People were
Right.
using churches in a way, but now they have been given permission. And this is where Charlie Kirk created a whole organization to politicize and capitalize on people in churches. It's Turning Point USA Faith. People don't
Wow.
talk about it a lot, but it was created before this last election, 2 years before, to go around and start cultivating these churches and denominations because and Flynn was part of that too, and some others. And so we also have to be aware, those of us who are politically engaged, help people connect these dots because they're using these churches to help to sustain support. And I don't know if people caught it, but during the last part of that bill being passed, when Trump was, when they were beating people into submission to go along with it, and there was one of the last days Trump was on the phone with church leaders. He said tens of thousands. So take his
It's probably
numbers.
a thousand. He's gonna
Yeah,
thousand.
right, take his numbers for what they're worth, consider the source. But the fact that he's on a call with a lot of Christian leaders, to me, that a light went on, because it's like, these are awful things. This bill has a lot of awful things for regular Americans. So I felt like this was him kind of getting the leaders to already start conditioning their flocks to accept these awful things as, quote unquote, God's will. Like, this is God's will, and to show them these, or to rephrase or reframe things in a way that they don't see the real harm that's done. Like, we're making these people who are sitting in their mom's basement or on their couch to go back to work. Well, like I said, these people, not that many of these people actually exist, first of all. So that's a real thing, and I feel like it's going to get worse. The Christian nationalism of it all, because it's a big part of this.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I was reading an article, it was on the BBC, of a woman who was she was a Trump supporter. She got, she was an immigrant, and she was here illegally, and they picked her up. ICE picked her up, and I don't know how the BBC ended up meeting with her. She's in a detention center, but she basically said, "I still support Trump, and I'm not moving off of it, no matter what." And I was in shock, because I'm like, I'm not shocked because I know how these people think, but just knowing that she's away from her children. I mean, you have put this man and his persona. He doesn't care about you. Trump doesn't care about anyone but Trump, and maybe his even family. Like, he is all about himself, and his goal is to fulfill these promises that he has come up with. Many of them are related, like you said, to Christian nationalism. Many of them are just nationalistic in itself. And a lot of people have bought into that. Like, they've bought into this America First agenda. That's what they keep saying. This is America first. We're going to do whatever we can to make America the best. And you hear, and somebody made like a graphic. They put it in my damn Twitter, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't care about this. But this is how these people think, right? The mindset, to your points about, conditioning, is that they've been conditioned to believe that whatever Trump does, he can do no wrong. And he's almost like a godlike figure to them. And it's very scary, because how do you break people away from that? And then you have the situation with, like, the Epstein list, where there are some people who are like, maybe waking up to the reality that he is not always going to tell you the truth, and they're hiding something. Now, is that the majority of people? No, it is not the majority of MAGA, but there are some people who are like on the fence MAGA people that just became part of the cult, that maybe, like, you know what, and maybe they followed along with Elon and some of these influencers that are part of this. So the question is, like, do they stick around? Because a lot of those people too are QAnon people, right? They believe in these conspiracy theories.
Their minds were hacked. A lot of this started during COVID, and you mentioned Elon, the nemesis in my backyard, like, literally. Um, and I think it's interesting. We should talk a little bit about the fight that's gotten stirred up again, and him and his what is it, American Party or whatever. Now, this is interesting because this is straight out of Russian propaganda. Like, 2 weeks before he did this, RT, Russia Today, tweeted that they should start an America Party. And lo and behold, Elon does. He's unhappy, but he's unhappy. And a lot of the people who were against it, it wasn't because of the harm that it was going to do to people, but it was because it wasn't severe enough. You
Right.
know,
The thing with Elon, his objection to this bill was like two things. One was more the cost of it. He did not like the cost because it will add a bunch of money to the deficit, so he was against that. But there is also the EV credit, that is being removed, and people have to spend, the $7,500. That will impact his business, because if people don't have, I mean, I don't know who's buying Teslas these days, but there are people who still like Teslas, and that $7,500 is an incentive, which is what the purpose of it was, to buy an electric vehicle. You take away the incentive, people are going to have to pay the full ticket price of this car, and is it really worth it? So his business is impacted by this, and his Doge stuff is irrelevant now, because they're going to spend, I don't know what it is, 3 point something trillion dollars over the next, whatever many years, 10 years, and
Yeah.
every year that deficit is going to, our yearly deficit is going to be impacted. Maybe not so much the first year, but as we go through those years. But that also is contradictory to what he was trying to do, which was to save the government money. So what was even his purpose? You just fired a whole bunch of people just to save money. That's the only thing that came out of that. I mean, let's be real. That's the only thing. And you notice no one talks about Doge anymore. It was a hot topic from January all the way to Wednesday. It's Wednesday. So to March. Um, and now it's like irrelevant. No one's talking about Doge
Right,
anymore.
because essentially, I think that he was kind of like their Trojan horse to really kind of break the governmental infrastructure, which is what Project 2025 wanted to do. But yes, so he's mad because he's not getting some of the goodies that he thought that, he was going to get. But again, they're talking about like saving money, creating jobs and these kinds of things. But like he's here in Memphis now, people brought him in. We have progressive Black mayors who are supporting, what he's doing, and of course other people, but he's doing all these things like in secret. Like it's like, how do you bring this kind of big business? Like it was he had TVA authorities, what is the other organization, like Greater Memphis, like the organizations, the business organization, I can't think of it, but they're everywhere. It's a national organization. Commerce, Chamber of Commerce, and these kinds of people, they were all involved, and they had to sign NDAs for him. So the people in the community didn't even know that he was bringing his AI there until it was like he opened, and it's been like a year, like this week, that he was operating, and he's been operating and exceeding all of these um, emissions and environmental things. Well, this week he finally got permitted for 15 of them. So let's see if he adhered to the permits. But again, they're talking about all the things that he's bringing, the jobs and all of this, because he's supposed to be building this huge facility. Well, guess what? Because I'm working on another article about him because I'm trying to keep up with what he's doing here. Um, he is now, instead of like, yes, he could build a facility. It could be an opportunity for jobs for people, construction and stuff for people in the local area that would, add to the economic growth and job opportunities for people. But you know what he's doing? Because he's the richest man in the world. He's not having a building built there. He is literally buying a plant, a whole entire plant from overseas and having it shipped to Memphis. Yes, yes.
Wow.
So, I mean, how are you helping jobs? I mean, like you're just gonna, and who knows? Like, and again, a lot of secrecy around that. That at this point, no one knows what country it is that he's bought it from, where he's bought it from. I don't know. What are the building materials? Do they meet our building standards or whatever that people, will have to be in or around? But again, like I said, it's like some of the nuance of what they're doing, people just don't think about because they keep talking about job opportunities and innovative opportunities or whatever, but the few opportunities that they are, you cut people out, because it's not happening fast enough, for you. So they just lie. We need another word for hypocrites because none of the stuff they say
Yeah, I mean, it's total hypocrisy, but listen, the hypocrisy is amongst us in many ways. So, I'm just frustrated. Like the whole like it's bad enough that we have like Republicans doing a whole bunch of stuff, but then we have like infighting within our own party that
Oh,
is making me so angry. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Like, there's just a lot that's going on, and I don't think that, like I said, the people who are not fully engaged with this, they're immune to all of this stuff. But the battles that people are having are becoming we are becoming a divided party, which is the Democratic Party, because we can't seem to see eye to eye on certain things. And of course, the New York race is making things way worse than what they should be, right? This is a local election. This is a mayor's race that has now
why is it
turned.
getting all this national attention? Like I mean, I know it's a big city, one of the biggest,
Right.
but like let New Yorkers decide what is best
Uh,
for New Yorkers.
Apparently, that's not allowed on Twitter. You're not allowed to. They're not allowed to decide for themselves. And what we have started to do is like try to say, well, we need to gatekeep who can run in Democratic primaries, and then you had Dean Phillips, who's a disaster all the time. I can't stand him. But the fact that he went on CNN, they asked him about the race, and he's like, they asked him about, is the party big enough for Mamdani and then like centrist Democrats? And we have had people that have come over to our party, like a Joe Walsh. We have David Jolly, who's running as a Democrat in
In
Florida for
Florida.
governor. Yeah, so we have people that have come into the party. We've had, Kamala got a lot of endorsements from, Republicans that believed in democracy. We may not agree on everything else, but we agreed on democracy. And then you have the leftists, right? And I understand the whole listen, I'm not a fan of the left. As they say, I don't like DSA. I have my reasons for not liking them. But my thing is, when there is an election and people vote, you respect the voters. They took their time, they went to the ballot box, and they made their voices heard. This is what we've been preaching for years. Let the voters decide, let them go to the ballot box. They will pick the candidate that they think is the best person in the race. And there was, I don't know, 10 plus candidates in that race, and they picked the one that they believed was the best. And it wasn't like we did, they had ranked choice voting so people could pick more than one candidate on their ballot. And yet we have people like John Fetterman saying that Mamdani is not a Democrat. He and I'm like, okay, he has this is not his first race running as a Democrat. He ran as a Democrat 3 times before and has been elected. He's an assembly person. He's not some random person that just came and like that just decided he's going to run as a Democrat. He's been there. Yes, he's a democratic socialist. I get that. That's not the cup of tea that a lot of people want to taste from, right? That's not, they won't drink from that. They find them to be pains in the butts. I do. The whole 2016 with Bernie, they have different views from Democrats, normal Democrats on certain issues. They are socialists in their own socialist kind of way. It's not traditional socialism in the way that we think of like Soviet and like Cuban communism type of stuff. So we have differing viewpoints on certain things, on Israel especially. But when the voters go to vote, why can't we respect the fact that these people decided that this is the candidate that they want? Regardless of how
Exactly.
you feel, regardless of how you feel about his stances, his policy, what he can and can't do, that he didn't denounce, a certain phrase. Regardless, the voters in that city decided that he was going to be their guy. There is now going to be a general election. And thankfully for New York, they have choices there. It's not just a Democrat and a Republican running against each other because Curtis Stillwater is a hot mess. He always has been since his amendment is red beret. But there are other people who are now going to be able to join this race, which is we assume Andrew Cuomo, who lost, will be running as an independent. His name will be on the ballot, whether he runs or not. You have the current mayor, which is Eric Adams, who is going to be running in this race and already, announced his candidacy. And then you also have another guy who is Jim Walden. So there are choices that people have in this race. They're not stuck with the Democratic nominee versus the Republican nominee in this race. There are multiple people that they can choose from. But to me, when you are saying that someone does not belong in the party, or a person should not is not a Democrat, I don't think that a John Fetterman is in the place to tell somebody who is or who isn't a Democrat. And that's just how I feel about it. I don't, why are we gatekeeping who is it, who isn't, or who isn't, regardless of how you
Did,
feel about them?
did we not say or declare, do we not declare ourselves a big tent party? Like,
Apparently
I
that's
mean,
not allowed. That's not allowed anymore, Ms. D. We're not allowed to be a big tent. The people want on Twitter want the tent to be closed. They want the tent to be gatekeeps, and we have to the Democratic Party should tell people if they can and can't run. If they don't agree with them, then they got it. That's not how democracy works. That's not how this works. If you are a Democrat, if you go, even if you're a fake Democrat, you go down and you register as a Democrat and you sign up and say you want to run for an election, go ahead. That's how this works. There's no one stopping you, right? The state is not going to stop you. What will
the
stop you
Democratic
though
Republic. Yeah.
is the voters. The voters have the final say on whether or not they want to elect you. When they get that ballot and there's 5 names on it, 10 names, 20, whatever it may be, they're going to pick the candidate that they want. That is what our democracy does. That's how this works. And the voters in a representative democracy, the people are the ones that get to decide who is going to be the nominee. When we get to the general election, other people, independents, Republicans, can have their say, including the Democrats who voted for the other guy. They will have their say in the final round of this election. But
And that's,
I,
yeah.
it just frustrates me because I feel like, there's a lot that has happened within the last year, with Biden dropping out, young committed movement, like all of these things have made people like hard, but also it's made people irrational to how government works. And it's why so many people have chosen to not be involved in party politics. They don't want to be
That
bothered
was
with
my
it.
exactly. They it turns people off. And I believe that some people are doing it and not even realizing that they're hurting, our democracy. They're hurting their own party. And like, Putin and folks like that, they are loving this because the chaos, divided, like, this infighting, as you talked about, they love this because divided we fall. And I am reading now a book by Ann Nelson. It's an audio book. I can only listen to like maybe 15, 30 minutes at a time at max
Mm,
because the the events that she is describing, and it's told through the lives of real people, and what they were doing, like, people like you and I, and how,
mm,
we were moving, and how they were moving and living and surviving during this time, to the rise of Nazism, like before the war, like it starts like 1932 or 33. But so many of the things that, I'm hearing and seeing, they're playing out here. And one of the big things, and it's why I keep harping on it, that I see is that even then there were like people on the left, so to speak. The Nazis were on the right, the
mm,
extremists, but there were people on the left, and there was an equivalent Democratic Socialist Party in Germany. I think it was the KDP, and then the Communist Party, and they were like the left, and they kept fighting with themselves. They didn't agree with the Nazis, but they kept fighting amongst themselves, and they couldn't get their shit together long enough to come together to fight the Nazis. So the Nazis used that division to just totally plow over all of them. And it wasn't until people were starting to be locked up, people were starting to be executed and killed, some in each of those parties, that people realized, oops, we might want to work together. We might not agree on everything or how we get there. And my whole thing with like the progressive or the BS, it's like a lot of the things they want, they're not unreasonable. Like they're
Right.
not things that Democrats don't want. What I find is their idea of how to get there and to get it
Exactly.
done is not practical. But the things they want are not bad. I mean, so I'm okay with that. Like, sit back and learn how government works or get in there and start doing the work. But to me, like I said, the divide is not so deep. It's people want to make it. It's when you boil
Right.
it down to the issues.
And it's not when I look at numbers, I'm a numbers girl, right? So I look at this and I feel like, okay, DSA has 68,000 members, and that is in the entire country. There are 45 million Democrats. Why are they outnumbering us on the media? Why are they have become the loudest voices? Why
Hmm.
how does that happen, right? When I think about it, right, they don't hold many positions. There's thousands of positions in the government. They hold maybe 200 positions within all of United States, and most of them are in specific areas like in Chicago and in New York, California, in blue cities. They cannot
Yeah,
win
in
in
Memphis, we
red.
have a we have a black progressive mayor in Memphis. Yes, I don't know if he's part of the DSA, but I think he might be very close, closer
Right.
to
There's
them
some
than the two.
adjacent, yeah. There's
Hmm.
definitely adjacent people, but by the numbers, I asked myself, Tiffany, why are these people the loudest? Why do they get the most attention? And I know the answer to why they get attention is because a lot of times they are saying negative things or they're saying things that are provocative, like defund the police, and which is an activist thing, and they picked it up. And that is something that, guess who can use that to manipulate people is the right, the right media. I mean, Fox News, you watch it all day. They're talking about Mamdani like at least every segment, like every hour there's a segment on him. Like, you would think that this guy's running for president. He's not. He's running for mayor of New York City. So it's expletive in how they're using his socialism to be able to push stuff, or use it to make people upset and fearful, right? Because Jewish people are obviously fearful of their safety, as they should be, right? There's a lot
Hmm.
happening. But I feel like, there's a lot that is used to make people angry. And that's what Donald Trump wants. He wants us, but I just don't understand why certain Democrats are running with right wing narratives and helping them. Now, you can call it out after you do something wrong. I'm going to call you out and I'm going to say something, right? But at some point, we have to like take a step back and say, is this really what we want to do? Is this New York race really the thing that is going to break all of things? Because if Mandami is elected, he is going to govern for New York City, not New York State, for New York City. And he would be put there because voters wanted something different, the same way they wanted something different with Donald Trump. And they would have to accept whatever happens once he gets elected. The same thing you would do with Andrew Cuomo is the person that gets elected. He has his own bag of issues. Eric Adams has his own bag of issues. I read this article this morning that he had Bill Ackerman, the anti-DEI guy, who was vetting his staff. These people all have issues. They all have issues, okay? All of them. They all have issues. But somehow we are focused on the one guy who is Muslim, and young people like him, and he's a socialist, and he hasn't denounced the phrase of globalizing Antifada. I understand the frustration, but at the same time, I am becoming frustrated that this is the centerpiece of what Democrats have chosen to focus on when we have all these other issues that we have spent 45 minutes talking about prior to this. And it's letting Trump off the hook because
Hmm.
the focus is not on him. The focus is on this race, which only impacts New York City. It does not impact, and people say, oh, well, it could impact 2026. You know what I say to that? Democrats need to get some damn balls, okay? When they ask you about this race, say, that is a New York City race. I am focused on my community. I am focused on my district. My priority is my district. And what is happening in my local area is my priority. That's New York's problem. Like, there has to be, they have months to prepare for this, right? If he gets elected, they have months to prepare for it. Be proactive. Tell the people what is going on in your all politics is local. That's just the way I see it. I don't people can disagree with me, they can be mad at me for saying it, but I'm over it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Politics is local and it is important. I think that Democrats need to not fall for the bait because I feel like media is pumping this up. Like they're the ones who are bringing it up, and Democrats fall into it. Like you don't have to answer their story or lean into this. And like you're not on Mamdani's campaign, you're not there voting for him. So why should your opinion of him matter or whatever? Why is it
Exactly.
important to you? And I would just, like you said, Democrats should not fall for that bait. The only, Democrats, are the people who are from there. Like, Leader Jeffries, of course, he's a New Yorker or whatever. But other people, no, that's not your thing. And look at the Democratic agenda writ large. How is that, like, how is it impacting that? It really shouldn't. But I feel like this is the Democrats allowing the media to drive the agenda instead of
Always.
them driving the agenda that the media has to catch up to, because that is
Exactly.
the problem. They are going to have to get better at this, and they don't have to answer every damn question that the journalists ask them. I am wanting them to stop and rephrase that stuff when because a lot of the time these questions are asked to them by journalists in Republican talking points and framing.
Always,
Stop
always,
giving them that.
always in Republican framing. And you know what? You know what you can do? If they ask you about this specific race, say, I would like to talk about my own race. I would like to talk about my own, because we don't, like Hakeem Jeffries, I will give him credit because they have asked him so many times and he will pivot. And the person will say, I like the way that, I think Ari Melba was like, I appreciate the way that you pivoted, but ca- again, he lives in New York. This is it makes sense for him to answer these questions because he lives there. A person that lives in, I don't know, Florida, what that it does. I mean, I understand. Even if you disagree, let's say I know Debbie Wasserman Schultz and a couple other people. They're Jewish and they were asked the question and they said they disagree. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with anyone disagreeing with it, but I just have a problem with two things. One is discounting people's votes. The other is telling people who can and cannot be a Democrat. And three, my other issue is the media. The media is driving this. Why are you feeding into the media narrative and MAGA? Because MAGA loves that this guy's a socialist. They are trying to use it. And the thing is, if we can allow them to use it and make it a detrimental to us, or we could say, you know what, this is a New York thing, and New York wants a socialist. And New York, if they want a socialist, they will elect him in the general election, and they will have a socialist mayor, and life will go on. And it may work.
Exactly.
It may work. It may not work. Who the hell knows if it's going to work, right? People are saying, "Oh, well, he has all these policies and they can't get done." We've
Well,
never
let's
tried it
see.
before. We've never tried it before. So maybe there. And what I do like, I did appreciate that he said, because somebody asked him in the media, like, "Are you willing to compromise?" And he said yes. And to me, that shows to me that he was at least not stuck in his ways like some other people who are a part of that movement, DSA, the left, whatever you want, leftist, whatever you want to call him. He's willing to compromise because you cannot govern if you cannot compromise. These two things don't go together. So his people are going to probably be pissed off at him at some point because he's going to have to compromise, and that's life.
It is, and that's how policies and governing works. Like you don't get, and I think that goes back to, like I said, my problem with them is because they run on these populist kind of messages and these ideas and things which are good, but without the practicality of getting them done. Like they can go up there just because they're elected and wave a wand, and they have misled a whole generation of people about like how you make changes, how policies are changed. And maybe some of them are misunderstanding too, exactly how you govern. They get into office or whatever and realize, like, oh, it's not quite this
That's
easy.
simple. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not.
So,
It's not. And maybe that's what needs to happen too, right? Maybe there has to be an ability to give them the space to do that. And again, this all comes down to voters and what they decide to do, right? But if the voters decide that this is their person and the person goes and they fail, you know what you can do in 4 years because you're not married to the person, you can get rid of them. That's how democracy
exactly.
works. It's not permanent. You're not permanently stuck with the person. They do bad, you get rid of them, and then you get another person. Maybe you get somebody who's totally different. I've just lived through this before in New York when we had David Dinkins, and then we ended up with Rudy Giuliani, right? So we've been down this road before, and I think New Yorkers want to change. Their current governor is freaking corrupt. I mean, he is a Trump Cody, right? At this point, he's beholden
Hmm.
to Trump because Trump held, his DOJ got him off the hook. So he is beholden to these people. So what happens next, right? I mean, you can stick with the corrupt guy, you can go with the handsy guy, or you can go with somebody new and see how that goes. It's not for me to choose, but I don't like the narrative and the way that people are talking about this race because I feel like it is actually dangerous to dismiss people um for their votes. I just feel like it's wrong. You shouldn't dismiss people's votes the same way I didn't like how people dismiss my primary vote for Joe Biden. I didn't like that. It's the same thing. Pissed me off. Anyways, sorry.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the way it is. As we start to, to kind of wrap up here, um, it is important that people recognize that we are a big party and that we stop fighting with each other. Like we don't have to agree with everything, we don't have to love each other or whatever, but we need to recognize the danger that sits on the other side and the
Right.
opposition. Like, and need to care enough about that danger that we can put, like our little differences aside. And again, like I said, when it comes down to policies and things, I don't think that we differ that much.
We
I think
don't.
it's just a matter of the tactics of getting there. And I think DSA, like a lot of the candidates are young, they're performative, and they like being provocative. So, just the
Yeah.
manner in which they campaign is a little different, and we may not like that. But maybe some of that needs to be, adopted in some ways. I'm not saying all of it by the Democratic Party because I feel like they're too passive and they're too old fashioned. And I'm an older person, but I feel like they have not caught up with the times, so to speak.
I agree.
And that is why, the messaging doesn't hit like it should. Like people are not, catching on to things. Like they are not taking advantage of the good messengers that they have within the party, like a Jasmine Crockett, and other people. So
Yeah.
I
No,
feel
for
like,
sure.
yeah, I feel like there's some good that can come out of it if we allow it and not again like tear ourselves down and let them win by default because we took ourselves off the field, basically.
Absolutely. And also engage in the discourse, right? Because a lot of times, like I said, we are in this corner, they are in that corner, but we're not exchanging ideas. We're not talking to one another to say, okay, listen, I disagree with you on this, you disagree with me on this, but these are the 10 things that we really agree on. How can we actually achieve these things and what can we do to get them done? Because at the end of the day, we all want to be able to live in a place and be able to afford life. And obviously we all want to be happy, We all want to be able to do the things that we want to do, go on vacation, come home from work, watch TV, chill, and not have to be stressed out about a man in the White House who God knows what he's gonna do tomorrow. Because every day I wake up and I'm like, what is Trump doing today? And I hated that during the first, during Trump 1.0. And here we are again, 2.0. I wake up and I see like all these different stories about what he's doing. Thank God he doesn't have Twitter anymore. Well, he does have Twitter, but he doesn't use it anymore. So I don't have to see that because I used to be a nightmare. So it's just like little things like that. I think, we can talk to one another and have conversations. It doesn't have to be me against you, you against me, and I hate you and I'm in this corner and you're in that corner. We can actually discuss our differences and maybe we'll come to an actually in some ways we'll come to an agreement on some of these issues.
Yeah, let's get back to that time because, like I said, I think that's how I kind of got really activated in politics is because I was working for a Republican mayor. Our ideology was different, but we agreed on the things that we felt like were good for our town. And like I voted for him. Because he was better than the other candidates who were running and the Democratic people who were there were corrupt. They were doing a lot of crony politics and stuff. And I liked his ideas. We lived in the same neighborhood and he had um like concrete plans of how to bring the changes that he talked about. And he did, but we disagreed about so many things, especially, of course, when we talked about national politics and things.
Right.
But we were able to disagree, to allow each other to express our viewpoints, to not demonize one another. We still respected one another as people, as humans, as Americans. And I'm just like I said, that was my deep dive into politics and how, like when I really got bitten because I felt like, because I'm in the military, like politics, like, I mean, you vote or whatever, but it's not a lot of, discussion around that because we work for, Republican and Democratic, commanders in chief. Um, but at the local level, I feel like you should be able to have these conversations. And in general, we should be able to have discourse with people. Like it's at the end of the day, the people that we are elect are basically just these people that we are putting in charge of the money, our taxes, and how they spend, and to look out for us and our well being and our safety, and to allow all of us as Americans to that life, liberty, and that pursuit of happiness, so to
That
speak.
little bit of that little bit of happiness is what we got to
Yes,
take away. And
we
yeah,
keep
like you said,
struggling for it, but
we keep
yeah.
struggling. Every 2 weeks we come back and we're like, you have to breathe as soon as we come on here and be like, you know what? But it is joyful to talk to you, like as always.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate your support. And of course, Tiff and I'll be back here in 2 weeks, which I know it will seem like 2 years.
Years. It'll be almost the end of the month by then, which is crazy.
I know. So I can't wait. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Tiff. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and a
You
great weekend ahead. And we'll see what happens this weekend because there's always some stuff.
every weekend. All
All
right.
right.
Have a good one.
Bye. You
Bye bye.
too. Bye, Dallas.